A momentary lapse in concentration and a slip of the pen by a trainee station master resulted in a collision between a high-speed Intercity Express and a fully loaded freight train, costing the lives of 57 people. But was it really his fault? The Greek network was in such poor condition that the automated signalling system had stopped working over 6 years prior, and no one had bothered to fix it. This is the story of the Greece train disaster. A report released by the European Union found that Greece had the worst rail safety record of any EU country between 2018 and 2020. Rail workers in early 2023 issued a statement complaining of a constant string of minor incidents, warning that a more serious accident was inevitable without urgent improvements to the network. A mere 21 days before the 57 people lost their lives to what can only be described as an astonishing moment of human error, which would have been prevented had the safety systems in place been working, the Greek Rail Workers Union issued their own statement. "We won't wait for the accident which is about to happen to see everyone shed crocodile tears. Safety should be on the front line." As it would turn out, just 3 weeks later, the dire predictions were more than just union saber-rattling. The state of the Greek rail network was shocking. With around 2,500 kilometers or 1,500 miles of track, Greece's rail network has struggled with aging infrastructure and a lack of investment. The intercity services operated by Hellenic Train have struggled to keep up with competition from buses and planes. And while the rail system has a loyal following among some commuters and holidaymakers, passenger numbers, just like the network itself, have steadily declined over the years. One of the most alarming aspects of the Greek rail network is, unlike its European counterparts with automated traffic control and screens that show where all trains are at any given time, much of the Greek network relies almost entirely on human factor, paper charts, and handheld radios to keep trains separated.
Greek Rail has largely relied on human systems centered on this room inside the Hellenic Railways Organization headquarters. This is the nerve center of the Greek rail network. A central traffic coordinator sits at this desk. Train drivers give him their whereabouts through this VHF radio system, and he plots their progress on this paper chart. But this completely manually operated system is not all-knowing. A local station master can switch tracks without telling the coordinator.
In essence, on many parts of the Greek network, station masters would track a train's location on paper using radio contact with the drivers and other station masters, and based on that information, they could advise a train on which track to use with no additional fail-safes in place. Although work is underway to upgrade the network, this has been slow and underfunded. At around 7:30 PM on the 28th of February 2023, Intercity Express train IC62 departed Athens, Greece for the 300-kilometer or 190-mile journey to Thessaloniki. On board the evening service was around 340 passengers and 10 crew. Many were students and young people returning after a long weekend of religious celebrations. The journey north would take the IC62 on the most direct route to Thessaloniki, passing through the small city of Larissa near the halfway point of the journey. Also on the Athens to Thessaloniki line that night was train number 63503, an intermodal freight service heading southbound from Thessaloniki. A key point that must be mentioned is the line from Athens to Thessaloniki is double-tracked. There is one line for trains moving north and one for trains heading south. However, an incident earlier in the day meant that the overhead electrics on the northbound line between Palaio-Phasalos and Larissa was not working, so northbound trains on this section would have to use the southbound line to Larissa. So at this point of the video, you probably think this must be the section of the line where the collision will take place. However, that is not the case. At around 10:30 PM, having arrived at Paleophasalos station, the station master cleared passenger train IC62 to continue north to Larissa using the southbound line. However, this was not an issue, as radio contact with its colleagues in Larissa confirmed there were no southbound trains on that section of the line. Although the trains and their passengers depended solely on a manual system to monitor each train and maintain a safe distance on this particular stretch of the track, it's worth acknowledging this wasn't always the case. A former union leader told a Greek newspaper that the automatic signalling system in the area malfunctioned 6 years ago and has never been repaired. Implementation of the Automated European Train Control System, ETCS, was initially planned for 2020. However, by 2023, it was yet to be put in place. At around 11:07 PM, having successfully navigated north from Paleophasalos on the southbound line, due to the power outage on the northbound line, IC62 arrived at Larissa around 48 minutes behind schedule. The 59-year-old station master on duty that night, amazingly, having completed his station master training only 1 month prior, was in charge of train traffic control in all of central Greece. Unbeknownst to everyone else, he had just made a tragic mistake that would soon cost the lives of 57 people. Most likely confused with the handling of a local train, in his ledger, he had marked the arrival of the southbound freight train 63503 that I mentioned earlier in the video. However, in reality, freight train 63503 was still powering south towards Larissa. At around 9 minutes past 11, passenger train IC62 departed Larissa for the final leg of its journey north to Thessaloniki. However, instead of being restored back to the northbound line, believing freight train 63503 had already arrived in Larissa, the station master cleared IC62 to continue north on the southbound line. Moving at around 160 kilometers or 100 miles per hour and with no automated systems to correct a tragic human error, Intercity Express train 62 and freight train 63503 were just 12 minutes from collision.
We turn now to that horrific train crash overseas, the head-on collision, 2 trains on the same tracks. It's now the deadliest train disaster ever in Greece. A passenger train and a cargo train speeding
toward... The big question that investigators are asking this morning, why were 2 trains running on the same track towards each other at high speeds?
Catching alight, and you can see the devastation, mangled metal. You've got cranes and you have metal cutting machinery to try and cut through those 2 first carriages, and that's the fear.
Ambulance and fire crew began arriving on the scene around 20 minutes following the collision. The first 4 cars of the passenger train had derailed, with the first 2 catching fire. The impact had been so severe that victims were flung more than 100 feet from the train. Around 40 ambulances transported 66 of the 342 passengers to hospital, while more than 200 rescuers worked to free trapped survivors hidden under the wreckage. In the hours and days following the accident, the death toll rose to 57, with more than 80 injured. It was the worst rail disaster in Greek history. The accident sparked almost immediate nationwide protest, particularly from young people who had borne the brunt of the tragedy. As tempers flared, many were left wondering how in the 21st century such an accident could have happened. Greek Transport Minister Kostas Karamanlis resigned just a day following the accident. He also claimed to have failed to bring the network to 21st century standards. The trainee station master who cleared IC62 to continue north on the southbound line leading to the accident was arrested and charged with causing mass death, involuntary manslaughter, and grievous bodily harm through negligence. Additionally, the supervisor who placed him on duty was also charged, along with 2 other station masters accused of finishing early. However, an argument could be made that, although the station master was the most direct cause of the accident, The rail operators and the state of the network had ultimately placed him in an unfair situation. At the very least, there should have been systems in place to catch his mistake. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis blamed the accident on human error. However, in a later statement said, if the remote systems had been working, it would have been in practice impossible for the accident to happen. Mass demonstrations continued to take place in the weeks following the disaster. Police estimated that as many as 60,000 people joined protests called by labor unions and student groups in Athens and Thessaloniki, while tens of thousands of people from Evros in the north to Crete in the south took to the streets in a joint call for better rail safety. Let me know in the comment section your thoughts on the accident, the arrest of the station master, and the ultimate state of the Greek network. Who do you think is most at blame? And as always, thanks for watching.